Hello guys, this is Krishana Banerjee. Welcome to my channel again. So we are here today for the second lesson of the series of a beginner guitar lesson that we are doing. So in this class we'll be covering the musical theories that are very important for a musician to learn. It is not only about playing the guitar, it is about learning the music and loving the way it is created so that you and we can create together. So, without further ado, let us jump back in. Let me just add one more thing. That is, this might be the beginning 2-3 lessons practicing, and these things may be a little boring, but if you dedicate yourself and you practice for the first month, then definitely it will become fruitful for you. Let's begin. So today we shall begin with the understanding of the guitar layout more properly. We have to know our instruments in order to make use of its full functionalities and to master it. Now, last time I didn't got a chance to explain to you in details about these aspects. In this lesson, we shall begin with this drawing. Forgive me about the sketch. I'm really a bad painter. Anyways, for broader understanding, shall do. Now, we shall begin from the left-hand side of the page. That is, the guitar layout is broadly categorized into three uh, aspects. That is, the head, the neck, and the body. In the head portion, there are turners or the tuning keys. These tuning keys, there are 6 tuning keys for 6 strings. Individually, you can adjust these to make the correct pitch as per your desired tuning or standard tuning. Now, the neck is categorized into just the fretboards. This is called the fretboard or the fingerboard, and these are made by individual frets, as you can see on the right side. And also there are strings attached to it. So there are 6 strings of the guitar, as we note. Now in the body, there is a major portion of the body which needs to be identified or recognized. Like, we shall begin from the left hand side, that is the binding. There is a pasting sort of thing that is there on the guitar body, which you can easily identify. It is generally white marked or gray color marked. So it depends on the color of the guitar it does. So this is called the binding. And the top, as you can see, is the upside portion of the guitar in which the strings, the bridge, the holes are there. Now, going to the right hand side of the page, we can see a rosette. A rosette is basically a marking or a design just outside the diameter of the sound hole. As you can see, the sound hole just below the rosette. This sound hole is the actual where the sound is created, or the forced vibration or the resonance takes place. Now after that, there's the sides of the guitar. There is a pick guard. Some guitars have a pick guard. When you're picking with a plectrum, it doesn't scratch the the body of the guitar. That is why it's there. Some guitars have it, some guitars don't. Depends on the make. Depends on the make of the guitar. Now after this comes the very important portion, that is the bridge. As you can see in the bottom of the page, there's the triangular sort of structure at the bottom of the guitar. This is the bridge. That is where your strings are placed and fastened, you can say, with the guitar. So in the bridge section, there are two sections. That is, there is a saddle on which the string rests after it goes into the holes of the bridge pins. Okay, there are bridge pins on which you pick it up and you put the strings inside the bridge pin hole, and you place the bridge pins so that when you change the guitar strings, you do this. So when you will change the guitar strings for the first time, maybe you will get to know. Now, for the identification, if you look at your own guitar, you'll be able to identify the bridge pin, the saddle upon which the strings are rests, and the overall bridge. So this is the guitar layout that we discussed. We shall now move on to the scales. Now we move on to the concept of scales. So any set of musical notes as in that we learned in last lesson, that is A, B, C, C sharp, D. So any set of musical notes ordered by a fundamental frequency or pitch can be termed as scales. So you take some note, you order it by the frequency or the octave. You begin with the lower octave of C, you finish on the higher octave of C. So in that particular note, so in that particular uh, distance from the lower octave to the higher octave, in between the notes, you put it in certain order and you get scales. There are many scales, you can create scales. So in this lesson, we will only cover the major and minor. So, anyways, so uh, this ordering of the notes from a lower to a higher octave, or that can be termed as frequency or pitch, can be termed as scales. Now, some concepts that needs to be understood is that an octave is the interval between one musical pitch to another with double or half of its frequency. Okay, so now what is a frequency? So the measurement of the number of times that an event is repeated per unit of time is called frequency. Okay, so let's say bit. So this is a lower frequency. This is a higher frequency. That means I am repeating the event number of times more per second is called a frequency. Okay, it is 1 by t as per physics, and if 50 times in a second there is a cycle or a wave, as you can see from on the bottom of your page left hand side, if say 50 times there is a sinusoid wave in a second, that termed as 50 hertz frequency. Hertz is a scientist. Uh, the unit of the frequency was coined by Hertz, so after the name of Hertz, the SI unit, if you must know. So, so this is called frequency. So you must have heard something about 440 Hertz. What is 440 Hertz? 440 Hertz is the musical pitch corresponding to an audio frequency of 440 Hertz, which serves the standard tuning for the musical note A. So there is a middle A in the piano, which is standardized as per International Organization of Standardization, that is ISO 16. That A note, if you play, that sound has a frequency of 440 hertz. That means the sound wave is 440 times the sound wave cycle is repeated in 1 second. Okay, so this is a frequency. So if so, you know octave. So the octave is, say, the lower octave is the higher octave is the. This is the octave. The note remains the same, but the frequency of the sound wave or the pitch changes. So that is why you must know the concepts of octave, frequency, and pitch, because this will come into your understanding when you compose, or you must know the concepts. Anyways, I hope that you understood this slide or page. We move on to the next one. So now, scales are broadly categorized as major and minor. Okay, why major and minor? Of course, thing comes to your mind. So, the words are derived from Latin words meaning large or small, as you know, and were originally applied to the intervals between the notes. That means the major has intervals larger than the minor. So you will not understand this now. When you derive the scales using the formula, you will know that the intervals between the major is larger. That is why it was traditionally called as major scale, and the minor was comparatively less. The interval, that is the note intervals, that is from C, let's say a C note, from C to D, you have C sharp, right? So if from C to D, you have to jump C sharp and go to D. So it takes longer time. But if you have to go from C to C sharp, it is a shorter interval time. So the minor key has the short interval, some notes. That is why it was traditionally called as minor. Okay, when we are learning this, we must also learn the symbol whole tone, that is denoted by WT. The whole tone, that means the the from C. If somebody says or asks you to play a whole tone of a C, that means you have to go from C by passing the C sharp to D. Okay, and let's say you are playing a D sharp note. Now, somebody asks you to play a whole tone of D sharp. So after D sharp, it comes E, then comes F, right? So D sharp's whole tone would be F. The concept is clear, I suppose. Now, for the semitone, it is also denoted as ST. For the semitone, that means you did not need to jump one note of the 12 notes that we have. That is including all the accidentals. That is the just adjacent note or the note beside that particular note that you are playing. Like, say, for example, you are playing a C note. Somebody asks you to play a semitone. That means you need to play a C sharp, just a note after C in the 12 note regime we are talking about, not the 7-1. We are talking about the whole 12. So this concept is clear, I suppose. Whole tone is one for taking the regime, the 12 notes. You jump one note, go to the next note. That is the whole tone, and the semitone is just playing the adjacent note. So now this is going to be interesting. We have the scales formula. So the concept of whole tone and semitone is clear, I suppose. We would need that to build our scales. Here we have a root note that is denoted by the symbol R. So now this R, this root note, is nothing but the first note of the scale that we are asked to play or asked to write. So that means if it is a C major scale or a C minor scale, the root note would be the first note, that is the C note. Similar to the case, for example, F sharp scale, F sharp major. So the root note would be F sharp. That is correct. So we have here the formula for the major scale as 1 root, 2 whole tone, 1 semitone, 3 whole tone, 1 semitone. So we need to go back to the first lesson in which we had aligned this 12 note regime. We have written down this 12 note regime. Always write down this 12 note somewhere to derive that formula by the whole tone and the semitone concept. So the root note, the C major scale, we are going to do C major for this particular lesson. C major is the root note of C major is C. So the whole tone from C would be D, skipping the C sharp note in the 12th note regime. So from D, the whole tone would be skipping the D sharp or the E flat note to E. Now, from E, we have a semitone. So from E, the whole tone would be skipping the F note because there is no sharp in E. So the skipping, if you are asked to play a whole tone from E, that would be F sharp, skipping the F note. But here we have a semitone after E. So after E, the semitone is F. Now from the F, we have a whole tone, that is skipping one note in the 12 note regime. Skipping the F sharp note, we go to G for the whole tone. Then from G, we have a whole tone, that is skipping the G sharp or the A flat. We go to A. Now from A, we have another whole tone. So we skip the F sharp, A sharp or the B flat. We go to B. Now from B, we have one semitone. So the B doesn't have sharps, right? So the semitone will be C. Say for example, if you are asked to play the whole tone of a B note, then it must be C sharp, skipping the C note, which is the adjacent. Now, that was the formula for the major scale. Now, one understanding or just for knowledge in the musical uh, reign, could say musical kingdom, is that the scale degree. Now, the first note, we understand this is the first note, second note, third note, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. So there is 8 notes here. The 8th note being the octave note of the first, the higher octave. Now, these notes have names. Okay, so in the musical language, it is called, the first note is called the tonic, the second, the supertonic, third is called the mediant, fourth is called the subdominant, fifth, the dominant, sixth, submediant, seventh is the leading, and eighth is the tonic. It is the tonic. All right. So in the musical companionship or in the musical language, somebody may ask you to play a subdominant note. That means he's asking you to play the fourth note. This is just for knowledge. This is not to be dealt with right now. So now moving on to the minor key. In the minor scale, we have the formula as a root, one whole tone, one semitone, two whole tone, one semitone, then two whole tone. Now we derive the C minor scale here. So the C minor scale, the root note being C, one whole tone, skipping the C sharp, we have D. Now after this, we have a semitone, unlike the major scale which had a whole tone. We have a semitone. That means the flat of that whole tone. One semitone. So the D semitone would be E flat. E flat or D sharp is the semitone because after D, the adjacent note in the 12 note regime is D sharp or E flat. Now after that, we have a whole tone. So from D sharp, the whole tone would be skipping one note. That is D sharp, the adjacent note is E. So after E, there is no sharp. That means it goes to F. Now from F, there is a whole tone again. So we're skipping the F sharp or the G flat note, we go to G. Now from G, we have another semitone. So the adjacent note of G would be A flat or G sharp. Okay. Now from this, we have another whole tone. That is from G sharp, we have to skip one note. After G sharp, A is coming. We have to skip A and go to A sharp or B flat. Now, another whole tone we have to go. So, from A sharp or B flat, skipping one note, that is B, then we do not have B sharp. We have to resolute in C, which is the octave note or the tonic note or the root note again on a higher pitch or a higher octave. So this is this concept of scales, and here these are the formulas that you can go through and memorize. Now we come to the concept of diatonics. As you can understand from the name, dia is the two notes. Now what is this two note concept? Basically, I have written the C major scale derived from our scale formula that we have already discussed. Now, in the C major scale, we have the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay. Now, skipping one note from the C note, that is the root note or the first note. So the first note is C. We skip one note. We go to the next note, that is the third note, that is E. Now, from E, we skip one note and go to the second note from E, that is G. So this is the diatonic. Skipping one note goes to the second note. So the second note from the note that we are starting gives the diatonic triads. Triads means three notes we form. That is beginning from the root note C. If we take C, the one note we skip, that is D, we skip, we go to E. That E note we write below the C note, that is C, E, and we skip one note from E to G, that is F. We skip the F note and go direct to G. So this is the triad of the C note of the C major scale. So C, E, G. This is the triad. How we have come to this triad? By skipping one note from individual notes starting from C. Like from C, if we need to write the triad of C, it is skip one note from C, skip the D, go to E. We have the E note. Then from E, we skip one note, go to G. That is the F note we skip, we go to G. We have the C triad. That is C, E, G. This triad becomes a chord. That means when you play a C note in the C scale, this C, E, G becomes a chord. Now, what is a chord? A chord is any harmonic set of pitches consisting of multiple notes, in this case three notes, that are sounded simultaneously. If you play these C, E, G that we have derived from the C major scale simultaneously, then this becomes a C major chord. This becomes a C major chord. Now, we will discuss the major and the minor chords a little bit later. First, we derive the triads. Now we go to D note. We skip one note from D note, that is the E note. What we have F. We have written at the bottom of D note F. Now from F, we skip one note, that is G. We go to A. We have written A note. That means D, F, A becomes the triad of the D note of the C major scale. Similarly, for the E note, we do the same exercise. From E note, we skip one note, that is the F note. We go directly to G. We write the G at the bottom of E. Then from G, we skip one note, that is A. We go to B. So we write E, G, B becomes the E triad of the C major scale. Similarly, the same exercise we do for all the notes. And if you can see, and if you go to, let's say, sixth note, that is A. So from A, if you skip one note, that is B, it goes to C, the eighth note, that is A, C. Now we have written the C note at the bottom of A. Now from C, we have again to skip one note. What note to skip? Of course, we skip the D note that we come directly back to, because the same scale is repeating. Same scale is repeating. Like from C, again comes D, then again comes E, again comes F. So after C, if you have to skip one note, you skip the D note, go to E. That means for the sixth note A, the triad becomes A, then skip one note B, then we have C, we have written C, and skip one note D, we have E. So we have written E. So the triad of A becomes A, C, E on the C major scale. So that is how we complete the diatonics and the triads on the C major scale. Now, like we have a major chord and a minor, a major scale and a minor scale, we have a major chord and a minor chord. Remember, the chord is a set of notes, in this case, three notes played together, that is played simultaneously. Then we have a sound, that is a chord. So all these chords that we have derived, that means all these triads that we have derived by diatonics, is basically chords. So when you play a C major scale, like for example, if you play a C note, the back end of the C note, you can play a C major chord. Then these are chords. Now, what is major chord and what is a minor chord? Major chord is the if you take a major scale and if you select the first, the third, and the fifth, if you select these three notes played simultaneously, this becomes a major chord. Now, if you take the same major chord and you flatten the third, and you play the first, the flattened third, and the fifth note, still the chord becomes minor chord. So you know the difference. The major chord, you take a major scale, you play the first, third, and the fifth note simultaneously, you get a major chord. Now, if you play a minor chord, you want to play a minor chord, you take the same major scale, you just flatten the third. That means the third note, if say the third note is E, in this case, in the C major scale, you flatten the E note, that is E flat if you play, and you play C, E flat, and G, you have C minor chord. So the C major chord is taking the C major scale, playing first, third, and the fifth note simultaneously. You get C major chord. Take the same scale on the major scale, and you play the first note. You flatten the third, and flatten the third note and play, and you play. Flat note means before, right? The note just before the note, the note that is before the actual note on that scale. You flatten that, and you play this and the fifth note, so that becomes a minor chord. If this concept is not clear, you can write down the comment section. You can discuss this further. So this is how we derive the major chord and the minor chord. Now, the triads that we have derived from the diatonics. Now, if you play the C note in the C scale, and we have the triads and the back, you play these three notes simultaneously, you have a C major chord. You see, in the major chord, you have the first note, third note, and the fifth note. You're playing, it becomes a C major chord. Now, coming to the D note. Now, D note, if you derive the D scale, by the formula that we have already developed, or we have the formula, if you derive the D scale, you will find the third note as F sharp. Okay, so if you this D major scale, if you write the D major scale according to our formula, then you will have the third note as F sharp. Now here in this case, we are playing D, F, A. That means we are flattening the third. That means that we are not playing the D major chord. We are playing a D minor chord. Why? Because we have flattened the third note on the D major scale. Okay, so we have a D minor chord. Here it is wrong. The reason is A minor, it will be D minor. Okay, the third, we move on to the third. We have the E. Now, if you derive the E major chord, E major scale from our scale formula, you will see that the third note of the E major scale is a G sharp or an A flat. Now here we are playing a G note, E, G, B. So the E major, if you derive the E major scale, then the the third note would be G sharp and the fifth note would be B. Now here we are playing G instead of a G sharp. That means we are flattening the third. So we are playing an E minor chord. So if you go by the scale of C major, if you play a C note at the back, you can play a C major chord. If you play the D note, you can play a D minor chord. If you play the E note, then you can play an E minor chord. Similarly, if you go to A, we have the triad notes as F, A, C. If you play simultaneously F, A, C, and if you derive the F scale from the formula, you will see that F is the root note, third note is A itself, and the fifth note is C itself. So we have a F major chord here. Similarly, G, to derive the G scale, you will have a G major chord. Similarly, if you derive the A scale, A major scale, you will see that the third note of A major scale is C sharp. Now here we are playing an A, C, E. That means we are flattening the third again. So the third note of the A major scale is C sharp. Now here we are playing A, C, E. That means we have an A minor chord. Now for this seventh note B, this is slightly complicated because it is not coming under normal major or minor. This is coming as B diminished. If you played B, D, and F note, and if you write the B major scale, so this becomes a minor 7 flat 5 chord, uh, which is you need to have a little concept in understanding this chord. But for the time being, you remember as B half diminished. This is half diminished. Then again, we go to the C note. So you can see we can derive chords from the scales that we have. So if you have a C scale, write it down, note down the diatonic triads, play the chords. You will enjoy playing the notes along with the chords. I hope this concept is clear. We also have accidental notes here and can be placed as diatonics also, but this is we are not going to cover in this lesson. We will discuss this further. If you want to discuss this, click in the comment section below. We'll discuss this further. Now, that's for the concepts of diatonics. We come now to the final concept of this lesson, that is the circle of fifths. Before going into it, I hope the concepts of scales, diatonics, triads are clear in your mind. Before writing the scales, we must understand the circle of fifths. This is the rule by which musicians communicate to fellow musicians. We just don't speak in any language. We speak in a musical language, and there are some rules that we need to abide by. Okay, so we just do not ask somebody to play A sharp scale or D sharp scale or something like that. When we write music on sheet paper, that is the staff notations, there are certain rules that we need to abide by and speak that language to our fellow musicians in order for them to understand what are we trying to say. So the circle of fifths is among those concepts. See, this lesson, I tell again, that is not about only guitar playing. This is about understanding music. We need to understand the music. Then only we can able to play one instrument or love that instrument, not only for the sake of playing a song. You need to understand the music part of it, the theory, to make it more beautiful and harmonized. So the circle of fifths is, see, you can take like a clock. This is a clock, and in the clock where you have the 12 uh, number, that's at the top, we have the C. Now, why here? We always start with C, as we have discussed it in the previous lesson. But the C major scale does not consist of any sharp or flat accidentals. That is why we begin, for the sake of simplicity, we have standardized C as the beginning scale. The circle of fifths is nothing but the, taking the fifth note of a major scale and writing it. Like, for example, if you write a C major scale, then the fifth note of the C major scale is a G. So G comes after C. Okay. So the fifth, if you write the G major scale, the fifth note of G is D. So we write the D after G. Now the fifth note of D is A. So we write A. Similarly, the E, the B. Now, when you write the scale of B, the fifth note of B is F sharp. We go to F sharp. Now, the fifth note of F sharp is C sharp. We write C sharp. Now, we stop at this C sharp. We again go back to C. There is no sharp. And a fellow musician can say, play the first sharp. Now, G is also known as the first sharp or one sharp because it has the entire scale has one sharp note in it. Similarly, D has, if you write the D major scale, you will have two sharp notes there. That is why it is also known as two sharps or second sharp. So somebody can ask you to play the two sharp scale, not the D scale. Okay, so you have to play the D major scale. Similarly, A has three, E has four sharps, or fourth sharp is called. B has five sharps, and in the staff notation, if you see at the bottom of your page on the right hand side, you see I have given you an example of a treble clef, which I will explain. If you want to learn, write in the comment section below. Uh, you can start a series on the staff notation as well. So in the staff notation, like there are certain notes on the spaces of the lines, and there are certain notes on the lines. So they will define, one musician can define as five sharp. Okay, when there are five sharps given, you must understand that this is a B scale. So fifth sharp or the five sharp is this B scale. So not necessarily this means that if five sharps are being written, then it has to be B, because as I said earlier, you can make your own scales. So the Indian classical music, you see, does not uh, get is not similar to Western music. So it may have more sharps, it may have more flats. So basically, to understand musical language, if somebody says five sharps, fifth sharp, you have to play B major scale. Now, moving on to C sharp. C sharp has seven sharp, including there is a note that is the C note must be written as a B sharp. You take the C major scale, you sharp the entire scale. Okay, that's when you get a C sharp major scale. Now the point of thing is B sharp In E sharp also, if you write, then only you will get 7 sharps in the C sharp scale. Now you will say that you told us that there is no B sharp, or no, there is no E sharp in the musical notes. But for the grand staff, we write in such a way to understand that these are sharps, 7 sharps, and 6 sharps are there. This is only applicable for the F sharp and the C sharp scale. When you write the scale, you will understand. You will understand that why there is 6 sharp written, there is 7 sharp written. So we only write B sharp and E sharp in the grand staff to make fellow musicians understand. But actually, there is no B sharp. B sharp is actually C. E sharp is actually F. So I hope this concept is clear. Now, moving on. So if we now the C sharp note, if you write the C sharp note, the fifth note would become as G sharp. Okay. Now here is the boggling thing. Now what we write in music theory is certain sections we write as sharp and certain sections as flat. We musicians do not say G sharp scale. No, technically wrong. Okay, somebody can speak in that sort of a manner, but it is not correct. You have to say A flat. So the fifth note of the C sharp scale is a G sharp. Now from here, from C sharp on the circular fifth, the fifth note is G sharp. Then we have to write, the rule is to write A flat. Now this A flat scale, if you write, then all the sharps you must consider the flat notes. The sharp, let's say for example, there is a note A sharp. Okay, so A sharp must be written as B flat, starting from the A flat scale. Okay, so the A flat scale has, if you write the flats instead of sharp in that A flat scale, you will have 4 flats on that scale. Okay, it is also known as 4 flats or fourth flat. Okay, so the A flat, if you write the A flat scale with the sharp note as flat notes, then the fifth note would come as E flat. It is consists now the E flat scale, major scale, consists of 3 flats. You have to write from A flat scale onwards. You have to write all the notes which are accidentally which are accidentals. I mean, in the sharp, you have to write as flat. If you write the E flat major scale with the flats, then you will have the fifth note. You will have 3 flats in that scale. So it is also known as third flat or 3 flat. So the fifth note of E flat is B flat. So in the B flat scale, by the way, you will have 2 flats. And the fifth note of B flat is F. And in that F scale, if you write the major scale, you will find only 1 flat. It's also known as 1 flat or first flat. Now, if you write the F major scale, the fifth note of F major scale is C. Now, it goes back to C and we follow the same loop. So this is how we write the scales. Now we write the C. Now when you write the C, all the 12 scales in as your homework, you must write from C to C sharp. You will write the sharps. Now after C sharp scale, if you start the A flat scale with the same formula that we have discussed for the major scale, but not with sharps, only with flats. Okay, from A flat to F, no sharps, only flats. Okay, I hope the concept is clear to all of you. If you are not clear in it, you can write on the comment section below. We will definitely discuss on this. The homework is that you must, okay, I will give you the homework to write 5 major scales, but you have to write the scales. All if you want, if your concept is clear, you can write all the 12 scales with the circle of fifth rules. You know, the first you write the C scale, then you write the G scale, then you write the D major scale, then you write the A major scale, then you write the E major scale, then you write the B major scale. You follow the circle of fifths and you complete the major scales writing. This is a theoretical lesson. This has to be understood. The concept has to be understood. Also, in the circle of fifths, you see there is A minor, E minor, B minor, F sharp minor. These things are written. These are basically the relative minor. Okay, what is this relative minor? Relative minor, if you would take a major scale, the sixth note is always the relative minor. First, we are doing the major scales only. When you go to the minor scales, say for example, there is a chord, there is a progression. Okay, you don't know what is progression yet, but let us say there you have to play a C major scale. Okay, in that C major scale, you can also play an A minor scale. Okay, because this is a relative minor. If you play an A minor scale over a C major chord, it will sound just fine because it is a relative minor. So relative minor is the sixth note of a major scale. So like G, the sixth note is E minor. So if you play a E minor scale over a G chord, that will sound just fine. So these are the relative minors, also for your understanding.
So here's the practice for this lesson. The chromatic scale, playing 1, 3, alternate picking, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4. So you gradually, when you move down, here the thumb position will be first in the middle position of the back. Then gradually as you move down, the thumb position will come up and it will go there. The thumb will relatively move so that it is easy for you to for the transition from one string to the other. Now, the practice is 1, 3, alternate picking, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4. Play 8 times in each string, move down. Same pattern, 3, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4. Like this, you go down up to first string, second, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4. Like when you come up to the first string, then you have to go up the third string again with the same pattern. 8 times each string without mistakes. Practice. For the open strings, this practice is very important. Also, I have to mention that you need a tempo that is to be run, that is on a metronome, and practice the chromatic scales. Otherwise, it won't be useful. I repeat, it won't be useful. You have to go on a rhythmic basis, not like you have to like this. You have to go up and down. Okay, alternate picking, of course, every time. Now, for the open strings, first you play this pattern. playing the sixth, the fourth, the fifth, the third, the fourth, the second, the third, the first, alternate picking. I will write down in the practice session, in the practice drawing, or I'm sorry, the practice, I will write down in the practice paper about the up-down picking of this pattern, but this has to be practiced 8 times without any mistakes. Now this has to be practiced in a way that a tempo should be maintained. It's not to be played like this. It has to have a definite tempo. Use a metronome, like play until you become master of it.
So for practice, first write down all the 12 major scales according to the circle of fifths. According to the circle of fifths that we have discussed, write down all the scales. Let's see what problems do we have. Right. Second is, write down the diatonic triads of, let's say, 5 major scales. Write the diatonic triads. This is the theoretical homework. So the third is the chromatic exercise, as shown to you people. The chromatic exercise will be the 1, 3, 2, 4 playing, alternatively picking. So this, first you will begin with one stroke in one note, that is 1 stroke, 3 1 stroke, 2 1 stroke, 4 1 stroke. Repeat 8 times on a particular string. Go down, start from the 6th string, go down to the 1st string, then come up from 1st string to the 6th string. So this has to be repeated and has to be practiced sincerely till there is no mistake on the 8th time. And that has to be played with a tempo, that is on a metronome. That is, we have to have a beat or a metronome playing on the background for you to practice. That has to be very slow. Fourth practice is the open string practice. That is already been shown. The 6th, 4th, 5th, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 3rd, 1st. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. This has to be repeated 8 times. If you fail on the 7th time, start from the 1st again. Okay. So these are the practice. This may be boring, but the base will be strong for you to learn more. So here is the insight that the more you know the theory, the more you'll be interested to know their whereabouts, and the more it will be easier for you to learn the guitar. So if the concepts are not clear, you can always write in the comment section below. We can discuss this one-to-one, or I can make a separate video on it. But the concepts has to be learned, and the practice will be a little boring, like I said at the beginning of the video. But you have to stick around, practice for 1 month. This boringness will become your masterpiece, because this is the thing, that the base needs to be strong. If the base is strong, the foundation is strong, then it will be a great journey ahead of you. Well, goodbye for this for now, and make sure you, if you like the video, of course, if you want me to do more videos, you can support me by subscribing the channel and sharing it with your friends, your friends that are wanting to learn a guitar, who have always tried but failed. This is a step-by-step method wherein you will get all the details and all concepts clear, the musical aspect, not only for playing guitar, but also for composition and further improvements. So goodbye for now. Take care.